All right. All right. Fantastic. So, welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Another day of well, I was going to say initially it's going to be another test stream, but we're going to see how this works because I already got my gaming out of the way, took care of that, so I don't need it anymore. But now I need to start my writing. I need to get back on the horse, and honestly even now, I don't know really what to do. Right now it feels like there's just this void, and I just can't write what I want. But I do have a working skeleton, if you will, a plan, to where I will take motivation from, and we're just going to push through. And that's what I need to do. So we're going to get on over there. I'm gonna see. All right, that's all square. Okay, so let's head on down. Cool. We made it. We made it, fellas. Okay. So hopefully. So we're gonna tune this down a bit. Turn this on. Then here we go. Oh my good. Very neat. Alrighty. Let's begin. That's too loud. So my normal talking is right about here, so yeah. Put that right here. And then we'll test it for later and we'll see. So yeah, it's time to start. Get this going. I need to work. So let's get this let's start with the last part that I had. And I was just struggling. So, here we go. Mara and Og will continue to walk down the spiral staircase, and at the end, the ruins huddle in a group on a central column. They both look at it and understand that without a cipher, they won't be able to move forward. While Aglo believes he knows, he keeps that. While Aglo believes he knows, he keeps that information to himself. As the two of them walk back, knowing that they'll need to find the cipher, two of them try to think about where one would hide such an important item, but their ideas come up short when they try to reason why it would be hidden there. They decide to walk through the castle again and take their time, as they know they can't go further without the cipher. I'm putting cipher. Let's see, that they'll need... Walk back knowing that they'll need to... Anyway, we keep going. This is for another time. They explore the towers and all the corridors, behind every painting, and while they do find hidden treasures and old personal secrets from the long departed, nothing is of use to them. Mara sits on the castle wall, the place she has made her thinking space after the many days of being sequestered to the castle. He looks off towards the horizon as the sounds of the remaining beasts rumble down below. You've been doing a good job, Mayra. Agua praises her as he notices her looking glum. Please don't let this be the barrier to all of your future efforts. Thank you, Mayra says in a lower tone he has to struggle to hear. I just don't know where this cipher could be. There aren't any clues. She casts a spell in her frustration that shocks even her. Agua catches her with its wing, keeping her on top of the wall, realizing that she's strong enough to cast minor spells from his tome through proximity. He's curious as to why such a talent would be so ashamed of their abilities, albeit rough, around the edges. I'm sorry, Her words slow down as her mind is starting to piece things together as the same time of her work. The same time as her words. Just angry. She jumps to her feet and pulls Agua to her, opening him up and looking through his pages. Just angry. Just angry? Angry. There it was. There you go. How do you spell epiphany? Epiphany. There. She jumps to her feet with a new epiphany and pulls Agua to her, opening him up and looking through his pages. She roots through a few of them and doesn't find what she's looking for, and throws them over her shoulder when she realizes that she's looking through the wrong tome. She leaps off her seat and sprints for the throne room until the proximity shock hits her, making her have to wait for Agua. As he gets within reach, she snatches him up and sprints as fast as she can to the throne room and sits in the empty chair. I think I'll finish this one because then I have to go, because then I made a thing right here. So yeah, okay, so we're at 16. So we're looking at 71, 77. And a little. Either way. Oops, forgot to turn off the... Well, sorry about that. Let's see. I'm just testing something out because it doesn't seem. Testing. Testing. Is that not working? It's very soft. Testing. Testing. Hello? Yeah, no, this is actually really soft. Hold up. Hello? Hello, hello? Hello, hello? Okay, I'm gonna check one second. The same time for work. The same time as her words. Just angry. She jumps to her feet. Yeah, you can't even hear it. Hold up, we'll turn this up. I can hear it. Okay. So that's how that's gonna be. Let's get Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Yeah, my voice is still very soft. Why is that? Yeah, my voice is still very soft. Why is that? Yeah, my voice is still very soft. Why is that? My voice is still very soft. Why is that? My voice is still very soft. Why is that? My voice is still very soft. It's wild because I did so much. It's wild because I did so much to figure this out, and now we're still soft. How about this? Figure this out, and now we're still soft. How about this? Figure this out, and now we're still soft. How about this? Figure this out, and now we're still soft. How about this? Figure this out, and now we're still soft. How about this? Testing, 1, 2, 3. How about this? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good morning, America. 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 1, 2, 3. Still low. What is going on here? 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 Low. Testing. So I need to figure out what's going on here. Testing. I need to figure out what's going on here. Testing. I need to figure out what's going on here. Testing. I need to figure out what's going on here. Testing. I need to figure out what's going on here. Testing. I need to figure out what's going on here. Testing. Testing. Hello. Testing. Hello. Testing. Test 1. Hello. Testing. Test 1. Hello. Testing. Test 1. Hello. Testing. Test 2. Hello, testing, testing. Test two. Hello, testing, testing. Test two, everyone. Testing, testing. Test two, everyone. A little better. Test two, everyone. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, we came here to write, not to talk. Well, we came here to write, not to talk. Well, we came here to write, not. Okay, so the music is better, but my voice is not better, and that I need to fix. That's gonna be such a very annoyed. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the music. All right. Okay. Here we are. Testing. Here we are. It's still soft. Don't know why. Jeez. I spent all this time trying to figure this out. Don't worry, we can do this. Haven't written a single word, eh? And well, it's been longer than that. Almost 9 now. But we'll fix it. I'm gonna reset the music. Because I'm feeling where I need to be. All right. So that's 1,000 words. And we have about 30 minutes left. So we're gonna put that there. There. All right. There. All right. There. All right. I can't tell you how annoyed I am that this is so soft. I can't tell you how annoyed I am that this is so soft. I can't tell you how annoyed I am that this is so soft. I can't tell you how annoyed. Okay, we're not gonna. I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to just be right next to the microphone. That's what it feels like it's gonna have to be. I'm gonna actually try to watch this. I'm gonna test the volume on my phone because hopefully I don't get that feedback loop, and then that doesn't, warp within all of this. So let's give this a a gander, shall we? All right, let's try this out. Hopefully, let's try this out. Hopefully. Okay, we're gonna look at. So right now I'm just talking normally, and we're looking at 10.1s. But if I move it and put it back to normal, like right here. Oh my goodness. No, it's right. Oh my god. I think it's because I'm turning the volume down lower so I don't. Oh my geez. That's. I'm so happy. I don't have to do anything different. See, now that's. This is great. So I'm going to take this moment to look through what I just wrote so I can hear myself read what we're doing. Hello, second person. Oh wait, no wait, is that just me? I think that's just me. Oh, well, nuts. Okay. So I'm gonna mute this and then we're gonna do a quick read through and then I'm gonna hear how I sound, hear how it sounds, and we're just gonna go through it. So hopefully I can get this cadence right, and I'm going to just mute this on my phone. But oh my goodness, knowing that you can hear me just fine is just it's just music to my ears. So anyway, without further ado, let's read where we are. So we'll start here because this is pretty much right where we started. Oh, how about that? Okay, we'll start. Okay. So I'll just mute this and we're gonna go for it, and then I'll listen to how it sounds. Okay, story time. She leaps off her seat and sprints for the throne room until the proximity shock hits her, making her. Yeah, I feel. Anyway, you know what? We're just gonna go. We're just gonna go. She leaps off her seat and sprints for the throne room until the proximity shock hits her, making her have to wait for Aqua. As he gets within reach, she snatches him up and sprints as fast as she can to the throne room and sits in the empty chair. Aqua doesn't understand what she's trying to do, as her face begins to strain from concentrating too hard on her goal. Mayra, dear child, what are you trying to do? He questions as her face begins to flush. She sits back and sighs with her first attempt's failure, but takes Agua in her hands and looks at him face to face. My mother's tome is inside your place? A home? She struggles to find the words to describe the space she was locked in during the battle with Killside, when a single word pierces her train of thought. Prison. Agua stares like a teacher correcting their student. States, sorry. Mira feels bad having to bring up the subject, but pushes forward, wanting to get to the point. My mother's book is in your space, and I need it, and I need to look inside it, because I believe the secret lies in there. Aqua is starting to put the pieces together and vanishes from the gem for a moment, only to return just as fast, making the gem glow, and as the light subsides, the ivory white tome is in front of her. Your idea is what I think it is. You do know you have to match the emotional handshake, access what you wish to find. He asks as he flies to her side, letting her hug the tome once again, being apart from it after so long. Mira nods and does her best to think about those she cares about. Thoughts of her mother, sister, and friends make the tome jump in her arms, but it doesn't unlock what she's looking for. Looking for. Gotta add that gerund. Agua looks at the young elf, trying to her best, but nothing appears to be working when he decides to give her a little. It seems to be working until he decides to give her a little push. If Eristrad was here, do you think he'd be able to help? Mara doesn't open her eyes to his question, but just hearing his name starts to bring her comfort, and it's then that the tome reacts like it did before as the light envelops both of them. Their ethereal bodies fly through a haze of light and images all scattered about in the space. In a space she doesn't remember being in before. They both stop in the middle of the images, floating around like paintings, each with their own soft sounds and the smell of flowers. Mayra recognizes the smell, but it's different from what she remembers. As she approaches a painting, a cool breeze washes over her, and the same smell of flowers fills the air. Her eyes begin to fill with tears as she brushes them away. She notices the same two people in this memory as the one she was in last time. She turns away to ask Agua what's going on in this memory, but as she turns, he's nowhere to be found. She spins around and no Agua, looks below, and he's not there. It's only when she looks above her that she sees him high above. Looks above her and sees him high above her. It sounds like too many hers. High above her, staring at a painting. Both his wings stretch out to touch the canvas, letting his feathers gently caress it. With such care, you'd think that it would shatter if he didn't approach it that way. She flies up to meet him and carefully looks over his back to see what he's looking at, and there in the center of the frame is her mother. Her hair was cut shorter then, but still long enough to include her braids. Her mother loves braiding her own hair, and while Mara didn't share the same level of affection for her pastime, she did agree that she would braid her hair for important occasions. As the memory continues, she realizes that her mother is at the castle. As the memory continues, she realizes that her mother is at the castle, and on the wall no less. And on the same wall no less. And on the same wall no less. She pulls the point of view in for a kiss, and then pulls you along the castle wall, and playfully jumps from brick to brick before scaling the tower. At the very top, she pulls you along to watch the stars in the night sky fade as the sun rises for the morning. Agua, I can't believe you live here, her mother says in awe. Not the night sky of the forest, but... She hesitates, trying to recover from her previous words. If I can meet the days with you by my side, I could be anywhere, and it'll be the most beautiful sky I've ever seen. The memory blooms outward as the both of them watch as the two young lovers hold each other tightly and share a kiss as the sun blesses the start of their brand new day. The memory ends and repeats from the beginning as Aqua doesn't look away or even acknowledge that Mara is right behind him. She gently pats his back and he flinches to her touch before settling back down. I want to see her, were the first words she spoke. Broken words she spoke since entering this space. And for that we need this password. But she doesn't know. And for that we need this cipher. Please, tell me how I can help. Mara tells him that she hopes she can find a memory of her entering the password, but she doesn't know where to start, or how long it'll take to find if it's even here. Your mother's a smart lady, Agua boasts as his wings separate from the memory. I have a feeling that it's here as well. Give me time, and I'll find it. He spreads his wings and flies even higher, with Mara playing catch-up. More and more memories appear the higher they go, appearing out of the light without end. She can't help but realize that there was a whole world of laughs, hugs, smiles, and kisses long before she was even born. A world of love, a world her mother never mentioned once in the centuries she spent alive. When she gets back, along with her apology, she'll be asking her about this world and all the stories that she hasn't told her about. She wants to know these things, and by the time they meet again, she'll know that she's ready to hear them. All right. So with that, perfect. I'll probably just do that instead and have this open. Going forward, yeah, that's a lot easier. Okay. I need to remember to enunciate better. but but I think that's a good place to stop. Because I have to get going, and this has been a good time. I mean, I don't think you can see it, but no. But right now there's 17,000 words in this. Well, you did. I wrote it down. There's and granted, below here there's this and above. Initially, this is called the blueprint, and I wanted to put different things in here, and it isn't until here. You're right. It isn't until here that I start writing something new. And with that, that's about 14,500. I'm gonna need to rewrite part one. I'll have to, and that's gonna be a time and a half. I have about 30,000 words there, so I'm gonna need to really have to work through that. But I'll get it done. I'll have it done before the end of this year. That'll be okay. New goal. What if? What if I get this part done? I mean, at least, oh goodness, before the end of the year. We're still in October. We're halfway through October, so my goodness. And then we'll have October, November, December. So, yeah, we'll take care of that. I think that's very plausible. I was able to write over 1,000 words in in less than an hour. So if I can keep something up like that up, I think it'll be a great goal to set. So from with that said, there we are. That's what we got. So I am going to end the stream because I have to go. Yep. So I have to go. But for now, go back to HQ. So to everyone, oh, hello, third person. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry, but I'm just ending the stream now. But oh, remember, feel free, you can chat here. Look at this. Smiley face. um but yeah, I know that's not me because that can't be me because I only have two things. So truly, thank you for coming. You can the first part is a little scuffy, but once I get this whole thing writing down and disregard that. Oh, you're here. They're gone. But I did get someone. Oh, good days. Oh, this was so much fun. Oh, this is such a happy day. Because if I can reach one person, I can reach more. So, yeah. Okay. So, anyway, on that note, for everyone, I wish you well. You all take care. I wish you well, and I wish you love. There we go. Now, take care. I wish you well, and I wish you love. Good night.